Hello, you are watching Middle East Matters on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi. Here's what's coming up this week in the show. As the war rages in Gaza, we look at the impact of the conflict on Palestinians living in Jordan, on Holocaust survivors in Israel, and on the West Bank, where violence is surging. Welcome to the programme. The world's eyes are on Gaza at the moment, and rightly so. But we must not neglect what is also unfolding in the occupied West Bank. Even before the Hamas attacks of October the 7th, 2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinians there in 2 decades. Now the violent confrontations happen almost every day. Israel says it's trying to stamp out militant groups, but civilians are being killed. And Palestinians also have to contend with violence enacted by settlers. That's described by the French government as a policy of terror aimed at displacing people from their homes. Well, joining me now to discuss is Tahani Mustafa. She's a Palestine analyst at the International Crisis Group. Good to have you on the programme, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Paint a picture for us, first of all, of the situation for Palestinians in the West Bank right now, amid those army raids and the settler violence as well.
So I think for Palestinians in the West Bank at the moment, they're facing some of the worst collective punishment they've experienced since the Second Intifada, and they're experiencing it for an event that they had no part in. Since the 7th of October, we've seen conditions in the West Bank severely deteriorate, and we've seen an acceleration of pre-existing trends. We've seen the Israeli army launch a series of raids that, along with acts of violence by Israeli settlers, is taking a mounting toll. We've seen the army lock down the territory, closing roads, imposing restrictions on internal movement, cracking down severely on Palestinian political expression. The economy has been completely paralyzed, and West Bankers are really fearing the worst is coming.
And let's talk about the violence by settlers specifically. When settlers carry out attacks on Palestinians, what's the response of the Israeli military, of the Israeli government? Are they being prosecuted, these settlers?
No, so that has been an issue that a lot of international observers on the ground were trying to raise prior to the 7th of October. For the last 2 years, we've seen some of the worst violations of settler violence, I think, in history. Obviously, that has significantly increased since the 7th of October. But even prior to that, some of the complaints coming out from human rights organizations and even international observers, and that includes observers that were there on behalf of states, were claiming that there is a complete lack of failure for holding settler violence to account, in the sense of either investigating cases that were being brought forward to the Israeli authorities, or even bringing these cases into courts, or even prosecuting offenders. And often at times, a lot of these violations, or a lot of the violence that was being committed, were being committed by repeat offenders that were very well known to the security establishment within Israel. And that's exactly what we're now seeing increase on the ground today. A lot of those that are engaging in this kind of settler violence, a lot of those that have been implicated in the deaths of something like 8 Palestinians so far, are known offenders to the Israeli authorities. And again, nothing has been done about it. There's been complete impunity. Worse yet, you're now seeing the imposed closures are not just being imposed by the Israeli military in uniform, but you're also seeing the setting up of what effectively amount to militias, settler militias, groups of settlers that are going armed into Palestinian areas that are under full control of the Israelis, called Area C. And they are manning the entrances and exit points of Palestinian towns and villages, effectively keeping Palestinians in those localities hostage, attacking anyone that tries to exit or enter.
And Tahani, it's important to emphasise at the same time that there are Palestinian militants who are attacking Israelis as well. And long before this latest crisis, some analysts were already saying, look, the West Bank is in the middle of a third intifada. What do you make of that?
Some would say that the West Bank is currently in the midst of a third intifada, and that would be a very valid assessment, given that, when people think of an intifada, they think of the popular mass mobilization we saw during the first and second. Now, the current context doesn't necessarily lend itself to the same, to the same configuration of how those two intifadas panned out. Simply given the fact that you no longer have the same kind of ability to move around, right, to allow for that sort of mass popular mobilization. Also, Palestinians don't have the same kind of leadership, unified leadership they did back during the first and second intifada. So today, what you are seeing is a more diffuse and bloody process. That's not to say that it's not an intifada, but it is far more diffuse.
You touched on this already, but how much blame do you lay on for what's happening right now on Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority?
The Palestinian Authority is definitely not blameless here. The Palestinian Authority has failed to protect its people. It's failed to advocate for its people. It's failed to push for any diplomatic initiatives that can help ease some of the suffering on the ground, cool temperatures on the ground. If anything, no one denies that the Palestinian Authority is currently an authority comprised of individuals that are more self-interested than they are actually in terms of thinking about national interest. And that has been part of the problem, which is why a lot of the phenomena that you're seeing is so diffused, which is why you're seeing these cluster of different groups prop up, why you're seeing things like lone wolf attacks, because Palestinians currently feel like they are stuck between a violent occupation and have absolutely no leadership that is able to provide them with any kind of direction and, more importantly, a positive political horizon.
Tahani Mustafa from International Crisis Group, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, we head now from the West Bank to southern Israel and the city of Ashkelon. It's just 15 kilometres from the Gaza border, making it a target for Hamas rocket fire. Now, many residents have fled, but NGOs there have been trying to support some vulnerable Israelis who remain, including survivors of the Holocaust. France 24's Cecile Galluccio and Kathy Clifford have this story.
Over 6 weeks after the Hamas attacks, this community centre for the elderly still hasn't reopened. The site is now being used as a distribution centre by an NGO. The organisation is called Latet, which means to give in Hebrew.
It's very important for us to take part in this initiative. It's vital for all the individuals we are helping, who currently find themselves in very complicated situations, and for us too. It helps us to get through this very difficult period.
Those receiving this support, Holocaust survivors. Ashkelon is only around 15 kilometres from the Gaza Strip and is one of the Israeli towns most targeted by Hamas rockets. There are around 2,000 Holocaust survivors in the region. They each receive 2 parcels, one containing food and the other hygiene products, designed to last for around a fortnight.
Toothpaste, toothbrushes, wet wipes, shampoo, deodorant. The idea is for them to be able to live autonomously during this time of war, so that they have no need to leave their homes, and so we can relieve them of worries about how they will eat and take care of their basic needs tomorrow.
Our team arrives in one of the city's poorest neighbourhoods. This rundown building with no anti-missile shelter is where 89-year-old Alice lives. Like Alice, 27% of Ashkelon's population has nowhere to take refuge in the event of an attack.
Each war of Hamas reminds you of what happened a long time ago. It brings back difficult memories over and over again. It's really very hard. Our enemies leave us alone for a moment. We think we're safe and protected, but all of a sudden, boom. How are we supposed to be optimistic?
It's clear how much daily life has come to a standstill. Shops are closed and streets almost deserted, as is the beach, despite a temperature of 28 degrees Celsius. 90-year-old Zoya hasn't set foot outside since the 7th of October.
I live by the sea. They came by the sea. I try to be strong, but I'm not managing. I'm taking valerian tablets to help me relax. I'm afraid to go outside because I won't be able to reach the shelter in time. I have a home care nurse, and she's the one who takes out my rubbish bins.
Those who lived through World War II know all too well. It will take time for Ashkelon's residents to recover and go back to their daily lives.
Well, next to Jordan, a country home to millions of people of Palestinian origin. Many are naturalised Jordanian citizens, but hundreds of thousands displaced since the 1967 war still live in refugee camps. Our correspondent in Amman, Mohammed Erami, has been to visit the biggest such camp to meet Palestinians deeply affected by these events in Gaza.
Sami.
A few seconds of inaudible video exchange is all Mahmoud gets after more than 20 attempts to call his cousin Sami. Wounded and currently in Gaza's Nasser hospital after being evacuated from the Al-Shifa hospital, now controlled by the Israeli army. In the end, he got news by text and voice message.
The line's breaking up, Sami. Did you see? It hung up again. Every day I think about my family. I can't sleep. I'm always thinking about them. Even when we call, it doesn't work. The only news we get is on the TV. Every minute we hear that a cousin, an aunt or an uncle has died. It's the same thing every day.
Since October 7th, Mahmoud has lost 13 family members. To make matters worse, here in Jordan he is not allowed to vote, work for the government or own a business. To drive his own car, he has this blue licence, different from the Jordanian one, which shows he is Gazan and bans him from driving any vehicle that is not his own.
If Jordan gave us nationality, of course we'd be in better conditions. But what we really need is to be able to return home to Palestine one day, because whatever happens, we'll always be refugees here in Jordan.
While people from Gaza are truly treated as second-class citizens, the Hashemite kingdom has granted citizenship to Palestinians not from Gaza. Hassan is one of them. This high school teacher in the Baka camp has been fighting for years to secure citizenship for Jordanian-born Gazans like Mahmoud.
There's a difference between us, but we're all Palestinians in the same situation. We've been displaced and now are here. What we're asking of the Jordanian authorities is that Gazans and Palestinians from other towns, all born in Jordan, should enjoy the same rights and therefore have Jordanian nationality.
Mahmoud is one of 350,000 Palestinians living in the Baka camp in Jordan. At least 10,000 of them are from the Gaza Strip.
And that report brings us to the end of this programme this week. Thanks for watching and do stay with us. The show's back at the same time next week.